on Eastern Main Road in St. Augustine for the program Health and Healing, merging the old with the new with Brent Diet. For more information, call 318-7471 or 484-0141 or 360-4100. It's all about Kingdom Health Services on the Street 919 FM.
Share the live. Share the live. The Street 919 FM on Facebook and Instagram. Share the live. Iowa George on Instagram. Share the live. Iowa TV and Street TV on YouTube. Share the live. The Street 919 FM.
Broadcasting from Trinidad to the world. The Street 919FM.com. News from the Street 919FM.com. Here's what's happening.
Good afternoon. I am Vanessa Thomas with the 12 o'clock news on the Street 919 FM and online Facebook and YouTube. In the headlines, COVID-19 infections continue to climb in TNT. Health Ministry confirms 56 fully vaccinated people have died after contracting COVID-19. Customs brokerage affected in the pandemic, and internationally, 20 U.S. states report rising COVID cases and hospitalization, while European countries reintroduce lockdown measures as cases surge. And now the news in detail. COVID-19 infections continue to rise among the population in TNT. Epidemiologist Dr. Avery Hines says the positivity rate has increased from 30% to over 40%. He said this percentage is only halfway through the month of November.
Although we're only halfway through the month of November, we are really nearly already at the total for the month of October. So if we continue at this pace, we'll have a November total that far exceeds the month of October and might rival June. And we're looking at the background again of the positivity, which has trended upwards and which remains higher than in the previous months.
Dr. Hines also noticed an increase in cases in several counties.
Each group of bars here represents the number of cases by epi-week by county, and we see that each of the counties is now showing basically an upward trend over the last few weeks in the heights of those bars.
Dr. Hines urged the population to continue to abide by the public health regulations and to get vaccinated. Meanwhile, 12 more people have succumbed to the deadly virus. They were 9 men and 3 women. Their deaths have taken the COVID-19 related death toll to 1,850. The ministry also announced 403 new positive cases of the virus. Those results were taken from samples between November 9th and November 12th. In other news, 56 fully vaccinated patients have died after contracting COVID-19. Epidemiologist Dr. Avery Hines says most of the patients had pre-existing medical conditions.
The 56 individuals that we are counting as fully vaccinated and having still contracted COVID-19 and passed on are individuals who would have had either 2 doses of a 2-dose regimen or 1 dose of the 1-dose regimen, and the time period of 2 weeks thereafter would have elapsed before the onset of the symptoms.
Dr. Hines said the majority of patients who succumbed to the virus, at least 96%, had been unvaccinated. In more news, the COVID pandemic continues to cause massive disruptions in the ability to move goods from one country to another, as the cost to do so continues to escalate. Global shipping issues have seen dozens of ships waiting out at sea, unable to offload their goods. Local custom and brokerage firm are feeling the effects of this. Owner of Enion Limited, Wayne Batiste, shares how the pandemic has affected him and his business.
This is my 20th month without a salary. All I've been able to do is to just reorganize the mortgage. First thing you want to do is to make sure you have a roof over the head.
Mr. Batiste deals with the duties, taxes, licenses, and permits necessary for his customers to bring their goods and material into the country. His company also forwards freight and transport goods inland.
The business is transactional. If a shipment comes in, I clear and I bill them as per job. So in that way, I've been able to do two things. Not lay off the 5 people that I work with, but only pay them as the jobs come in.
Mr. Batiste admits that during this pandemic period, he has seen an astronomical increase in the cost to move goods and the time it takes to arrive into the country. Internationally, 20 U.S. states have reported rising COVID cases and hospitalizations. According to figures from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the average number of new COVID-19 cases in the U.S. increased to about 73,000 a day. That's about 8,000 more than a week ago. Here we have this CBS News report telling us more.
We begin with some troubling developments and potential setbacks in the nation's fight against COVID-19. For the first time in months, cases and hospitalizations are on the rise across the U.S. Health officials say that they're worried about a possible wave of infections before and after Thanksgiving. Meanwhile, a federal appeals court paused the Biden administration's vaccine mandate that requires workers at big companies to get their shots or face weekly testing.
And COVID-19 cases are rising dramatically across Europe, despite a widespread vaccine rollout, with nearly 2 million new cases reported in the last week, the most in a single week on the continent since the pandemic began. As such, European countries are reintroducing lockdown measures.
Going to start in Austria, which has introduced a partial lockdown for the 2 million people who haven't had 2 doses of a coronavirus vaccine. They've been told to stay at home except for work and essential shopping. Now, the country has one of the highest infection rates in Europe, but new restrictions are being brought in or considered across much of the continent. Courtney Bembridge has more.
There was a last-minute rush at vaccination centres in Upper Austria on the eve of new restrictions for those who are not yet protected. Unvaccinated Austrians were already barred from visiting restaurants, hairdressers and cinemas, but they're now being told to stay at home except for work and food shopping. It'll be policed using spot checks with hefty fines for those caught breaking the rules.
And that was the 12 o'clock news on the street, 919 FM, and online Facebook and YouTube. Recapping the headlines, COVID-19 infections continue to climb in TNT. Health Ministry confirms 56 fully vaccinated people have died after contracting COVID-19. Customs brokerage affected in the pandemic, and internationally 20 U.S. states report rising COVID cases and hospitalization, while European countries reintroduce lockdown measures as cases surge. Do enjoy your afternoon and continue to be safe. I am Vanessa Thomas.
News from the street. 919fm.com. The Street, 919fm.com. The official station that defends the nation.